Oh, welcome everybody. Welcome to Beauty on Purpose. Welcome to the rewriting of what you've known beauty to mean. Welcome to perhaps an understanding of why you've watched so many Get Ready With Me videos. But mostly welcome to this understanding, this new perspective on what beauty actually is, the depth of it, the power that exists within it, both in that soft and open, flowery kind of thing, and also in the fierceness, in the strength of beauty. So I am so honored to be here. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about who I am, why I am here, and why I'm talking about this particular topic. Sonia Semyonova, some of you may know me, may have worked with me. I'm an intuitive, I'm a somatic intimacy coach, and I'm also a writer. So if you know anything about astrology at all, I have a really uber big placement of Venus in my chart. And so literally Venus being the planet that governs beauty, love, sexuality. Like this has been a topic that I have been waiting for literally my whole life to talk about, to help understand, reframe what beauty is and is not. So I just want to hear beginning by looking at where you are in relationship to this concept of beauty. And specifically tell me, just drop into your bodies right now. And if you can type a word or two in the chat that tells me what it feels like to be alive right now. What are, emotions, physical states, what's happening in your life? I'll share. I'm feeling a little bit excited. I'm going to travel tomorrow for the first time. And we're having some trouble with the chat. I see that. Yeah. It's fine. I'm going to just ignore it unless you speak up with the hand raising. Yeah. So I'm traveling tomorrow. I'm going to the return to the US. I live in Canada right now. I am an American, and I'm going to return to the US for the first time in, as far as going home, which is Detroit, in well over 10 years. Yeah. Okay. So I'm seeing intense, and then as a check-in, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a pretty intense time. Heart on fire. Boom. I feel like I'm late for everything and that I don't know what I am doing most of the time. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that check-in. Yeah, great. Okay. So let's begin with a grounding practice. I always want to have a grounding practice at the beginning of anything that I teach because it creates a new delineation from what happened before to what's going to happen right now. And we're going to begin by just really quickly dropping into our bodies and honing our attention a little more closely to what is beautiful and what beauty can do. So just take a look around in your space and let your eyes really track the space around you, seeing if you can get your head all the way over your shoulder behind you, the other shoulder, looking on the floor, and then the ceiling, looking up, and just begin to let your eyes trace your surroundings until your eyes fall on something blue, any shade of blue. And as your eyes fall on this blue, let them rest very gently. Let the eyes not be forcing anything with their gaze, but simply taking in. Feel your eyes as if they are drinking in this color blue. Let the color fill you, let it wash into you. And begin to take some belly breaths. So, really breathing down into the belly. And as you breathe, imagine that you can be softening your body as you're breathing. And you're softening all the way down your belly, all the way down into your pelvis. And as you soften into your pelvis, you're still continuing to look at this color blue. And you're noticing that the energy of that color can come into your pelvis. It can fill you in this deeper way. And if you don't notice anything overtly, maybe you just simply notice that you're making an effort and notice what that is like to make an effort to lean toward something beautiful entering your body. Just feel this for a moment more, this blue aliveness, whatever the blue is doing for you. Now, blink your eyes, come back to the screen. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do in the next hour-ish time. So, what I've promised in this workshop is to unpack this concept of beauty and to really begin to infuse this idea with something more real, much more real than what we've been taught. You know, just like many of you, I was raised on, you know, the beauty standards of the West. I was raised on fashion magazines. I was raised to count calories and, you know, always be nitpicking about something wrong with my face, my body. And what I want to do with this time is to help us understand that there is value in beauty, and it isn't the value that we've been taught. We're also going to deepen our understanding of beauty by engaging, invoking the Greek goddess Aphrodite. So Aphrodite is the goddess of beauty. She's the beauty goddess of love, very similar to Venus, the planet that I mentioned in the beginning. Venus is the Roman equivalent of Aphrodite, by the way. So just so you know, it's essentially the same energy. And then the planet was assigned the name of Venus. And then we're going to close with a ritual of adornment. And so in the emails that you got, you were asked to bring something that you want to adorn yourself with, you know, so it can be as simple as some perfume or some essential oils. It can be some bit of makeup, a scarf, whatever you do that makes you feel beautiful. You may also want to have a mirror nearby you, and you don't have to have that right now, but we will transition and you might want to go grab a mirror, or you can, you know, just have one near you. I just have this little wee one that I use for a lot of my ritual work. And so it's just placed here nearby so I can grab it when I need to. So that when we are closing with that ritual, I'm just going to share with you what I want to say is this before I even go into that. Like, I'm going to share with you some program offerings that I have, but I want to say this. I do these workshops. They're not sales pitches, right? Like, I've been into so many of these workshops where you're like, oh my God, all I'm getting is the person telling me nothing so that I'll sign up for their paid stuff. Like, I have an interest in everybody receiving some information. And then what you'll get if you go deeper with me through the paid offerings is a lot more of this and a lot more individualized support around this. So I'm going to do my description of the programs that I have on file that you can take part in or not. And then I'm going to close the official recorded part of today. And then I will off camera, we can have a short Q&A so that you can ask any questions that have come up during this time. Of course, if things come up, do ask in the chat, and I will do my best, to keep an eye on the chat and everything else. So, questions before we begin? Okay, we'll take that as not right now. So, okay, so we're going to start with an understanding of where you are. Like, I want to know what you think of, like, what's top of mind when you think of beauty? So add something in the chat, just drop a note in there that tells me, what do you think of when you think of the concept of beauty, whether it is something that you love or something that you are annoyed with, something that you absolutely despise? What about beauty? What comes to mind when you think of beauty? It's pretty, and then it says issue for me. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of pretty, I think that's a really good distinguishing mark between pretty and beautiful and beauty, right? And I'm not talking about necessarily how a person looks, but this idea of pretty. Pretty to me has a connotation of being good, good girl, right? Like you're getting approval somehow. Yeah. Superficial aesthetics, a particular standard to have to achieve, right? Yeah, so you're getting all of it, that same vibe that I got, the same vibe that I got as a child, the same vibe that I continue to get. Like, if I care about lip gloss shades, then somehow I am not able to be spiritual, right? Like there's this like underlying message that's there. Yeah. Then I see also an addition, but also depth, magic, power, right? Okay, love that. Yeah. There have always been there have always been rituals of adornment, practices that enhance beauty from the beginning of time. There's no exception throughout the world. There is no culture that I have ever heard of that has completely ignored the power of beauty. And so, why am I talking about this right now? There's a particular reason that I am kind of hitting heavy with certain topics right now in these workshops. This is a time of tremendous ugliness. Like as I said, I'm American. I have a little bit of a distance from everything that's happening there by living in Canada, but I still see it. And it has a global impact, obviously. And so we're in this time of war, right? We're in this time of just absolute insanity, it seems like. And so you would think that I should teach, or one would think that a person should teach about, looking for the truth and like getting really hard-headed about it. And here I am leaning into these feminine power forms. And the reason for that is intentional. I'm not trying to bypass. I'm not trying to cut through the difficulty of, children starving and people losing their lives and being deported. I'm not trying to cut through any of that. What I'm trying to offer is that right now, the old systems are beginning to break apart without us having to do very much. All of the cracks that we're starting to see are cracking without us having to do very much. And so the question that I want to ask everybody who's taking in any kind of information right now, what do you want to see? What do you want to see emerge? I see very clearly that there is very much a response from the imbalance in feminine power, in feminine wisdom. And I'm just going to caveat that this is not necessarily woman body. Oftentimes it is, but it's not necessarily woman body. I need to just clear that the feminine appears in everyone and everything, and our lack of respect and honor for the feminine is showing itself. So I want to bring in Aphrodite into the conversation. So Aphrodite is oftentimes thought of as like, you could think about her as like she's on the cover of Cosmo, so to speak, in the Greek mythology. And she's not at all. There's so much depth to this goddess. There is so much depth, and she is exactly what we need to cool all of these fires that have been left burning unchecked. Her energy, the cool waters of Aphrodite, the beauty, the art that comes from such devotion. So I want to share with you some of the background of Aphrodite and one of the things that seems like a huge juxtaposition with her, which is her relationship to war and violence. So some of you may have read the email that I sent out that talks about Aphrodite being born after there was a castration, and then the sea foam came up. Like A man's junk got ripped off and thrown into the ocean. And then from that, there was sea foam that arose, and Aphrodite came from that sea foam. Now, it's kind of ironic because you'd think that she had this, peaceful, like a flower opened and then Aphrodite. No, no, no. No. There's a reason why she's in love with Ares, who's the god of war. She is absolutely, they are passionately, madly in love. They are not married. She's married to Hephaestus, who is an absolute brute. He is hideous. He was rejected even by his mother Hera. He's a demigod and he's randomly a master blacksmith, and so he creates all of these beautiful, suits of armor and whatnot for the gods. But she was forced to marry this beast, this brute of a man who abused her and despised her and followed her around to track her affairs with Ares. And in one story, when he finds her, he traps her in an invisible cage. He puts it over the bed that he knows Ares is going to come to. He traps her, making love to Ares, her beloved. And then he drags her through town, the walk of shame, in a sense, right? Like he's trying to shame her, trying to show her that she can't step out on him anymore. Now, I just want to share, like, there's a reason why Aphrodite exists with these levels of contradiction, these juxtapositions, this war and beauty, love and hate. Because what we need to remember is that these ugly bits of life, they require us to have a deep commitment, a devotion to something beautiful. There is far too much ugliness that exists. Our eyes, you could say biologically even, there's a reason that we're kind of drawn to seeing what's bad and what's ugly. And so we have to actually intentionally turn toward beauty. So why are we so screwed up around what beauty is? I mean, okay, so I studied second wave feminism when I was in university, and I saw all of the critiques of the patriarchal standards of beauty, and I rejected them. I saw all of the impact in my own life. I saw all of the women around me who basically everyone's walking around with some form of an eating disorder or some form of you know body dysmorphia, because they're just looking in the mirror and they absolutely despise what they see because it doesn't look like some photoshopped image of a model who is eating toilet paper to stay as thin as she is. Okay, so the beauty standards are screwed up. And when I was in my university years and I came upon this, I was blown away. As much as I loved fashion, I loved makeup. I was very much a girly girl, but I rejected it. I shaved my head. I started wearing really oversized clothing. I didn't want to show my curves. I didn't want to emphasize any of that. And so I put all of these beauty rituals, all of this conversation about beauty into the category of shallow, superficial, wasteful, masochistic, and downright demeaning. Yeah. Anyone else? I see it resonates in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. So I know I'm not alone. It's like those of us who see through the bullshit, we're like, oh, we have to throw everything out. And what I want to invite us to do is more alchemize it. Bring the parts in that are actually there for us, okay? Because we can't deny the bullshit that's been happening, right? Like we cannot pretend that all is well in the fashion industry, the makeup industry, the weight loss industry, the wellness industry that is basically made of the same tools, right? But it's what beauty is it exists far beyond those industries. It exists far beyond the psychology that they're using to trap us into believing that we are never going to be as beautiful as we want to be. And I'll tell you how I came back to really embracing this. It has to do, actually, there's two things that happened. As number one, I was just raised with this reverence for nature. Our vacations were camping trips. We were always in these beautiful places. And just kind of got used to just being in awe, in awe, just like, oh, look at that beautiful mountain. Oh my God, there's a river, the ocean, right? So like I had this foundation of understanding. And in nature, what's interesting is that it's not perfection that is beautiful. I see if I can lift this up, but this is my aloe plant here, right? Like this is the most beautiful thing to me. Look how weird it is. But if I can look at this thing and just be in so much joy with the different gradients of green and the way that it hangs over and the way that it's grown toward the sun and everything else. In nature, beauty isn't necessarily symmetrical. There's almost always an organizing principle, or there's a chaos that beauty brings. So in that, in that, I had that foundation. And then the other thing that happened, is just interestingly, was when I got my first major astrological reading in the Vedic lens, which, as I said in the beginning, I have this predominant placement of Venus, and I didn't know that. And I didn't, and the astrologer was like, hey, basically, to summarize what he said, it was like, it's cool if you like pretty things. And I had been fighting against this. I was like, no, they have to be efficient and, trying to, get everything done. And beauty can be extremely inefficient. And so I just began, actually got this is a ring that is connected to the planet Venus. I wear it every day. It was a gift from my ex-husband, and it's this reminder of the beauty that exists in the world. And it's a reminder to let it shine, that we don't have to hide it. We don't have to dim it down. We can actually embrace it and feel good about it. And this is the nature of beauty, is that it wants us to feel good. It wants us to feel good. So take something like in nature, okay? So if you are looking at this beautiful aloe plant, or you're looking at a beautiful flower or the mountain range or what have you, it wants you to give it attention. And if you get quiet enough, you can begin to hear that invitation calling you in. An invitation that says, please give me attention. Come to the present moment fully. Let me seduce you. Let me show you that everything is not hideous and horrible and ugly, but there are so many threads of everything brilliant and beautiful in this world, all around us, all the time. I like to think about all the different ways, so I grew up in a very cold part, like very cold part of the world in Detroit. And, I remember even when there were no leaves on the trees, and I would look outside as a kid, and the branches were just covered in frost, and they were frozen, right? And it's really, even that, like, people complain in this freezing cold weather in the middle of December or January. And I was always able to find something that was beautiful. And I want to ask you to do the same right now, to reflect. So I could tell you 30,000 things that have happened that are disgusting and horrible and awful this week, top of my head, right? Just not even having to think too much about it. But I want you to also go into the memory of this past week, or maybe over the weekend, and name one thing in the chat that happened that you witnessed that was beautiful. And this can be something in nature. It can be a piece of art. It can be an act of kindness or care. All of these things. I saw this woman. I was getting a tea the other day in the cafe. I saw this woman, and I just looked at her, and I had to like pull myself back, because I was like, the woman is stunning. The way that she put herself together, absolutely stunning. And she wasn't apologizing for it. She was a younger woman too. So it was just like, I took everything in me to not just be a creep and stare at her. But I was very comforted by that, because I love when women do that. I love when women express their beauty fully. So what's happened to you? What beautiful thing has happened to you this week? Name it in the chat. Go back into your memory banks. What has brought you shockingly into the present moment? Strangers showing up for each other, holding space in ways that even those closest to them can't. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. The way that compassion just comes through. I noticed when I read that, my body had chills that came over it. Yeah, what else? I want to hear what's been beautiful, just even if it was one moment, like just the way that the sun broke in through your window, something that someone said to you, the way that you had, like, you did you have a killer outfit on, right? What happened that was beautiful? So, beauty, the purpose of it. Oh, saying goodbye to my husband for 15 days and the way he looked at me. Oh, goodness. That one is tender. Oh, I honestly, that one is so, it's so fitting because we expect only happiness to to be associated with beauty, but we're talking about saying goodbye to a loved one. And sometimes these moments are unbelievably beautiful. There was when my mom was dying, her very last good day. I was in Florida visiting her. I was living in Colorado at the time. And we drove. She was too sick to drive, but I had her car and she had a Mustang convertible. She never put the top down. She was very proper. And I said, let's go for a sunset drive. We put the top down and we drove all around her shitty little town in Florida. And she was so sick that she could barely, kind of be with the conversation that we were all having. But I mark that as one of the most beautiful times of my life, the most beautiful days. I remember the sunset, remember the way the car drove on the streets, coyotes showing up to watch my yoga practice, the man that stopped to warn me about them. Both are true. Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. I attended a movement session, free dance, where I jump and spin like a kid for the first time in my whole life. Oh, I love that. I love that. You see, we need to consciously cultivate our attention toward these things, or else they just disappear with all of the ugly shit. And there's a lot of ugly shit, as I've mentioned several times. And what I want to say is like this power, there's so much constant pressure in our lives. And what beauty does is it helps us lift us out of that down. Sometimes it grounds us too dramatically, right? It invites us to see that there is a different perspective, perhaps, that we've been missing. It's like, it doesn't have to be so heavy and awful all the time. And I see this power of beauty as inherently being of the feminine. And that's not to say that it's timid, it's not sweet, it's not sugar and spice. Okay. Go look at a waterfall and tell me about how weak beauty is. Tell me how soft it is when you're standing in front of that waterfall and you're in awe of it. Beauty can be fierce, it can be strong as fuck. And all it wants for everything that beauty is doing for us, like just the feelings that I've had, and I'm sure that others have had in reading the chats and hearing these beautiful moments, right? It does so much for us. It lifts us up. It inspires us. It actually makes us want more of this. All it wants in return for all of these grand gestures, for all of these acts, all it wants for this is our attention. That's it. Attention is no small thing. It is no small thing. There's a lot of different spiritual texts that will talk about the where our attention goes. It's where our energy goes. It's where our, it's if I look entirely at the world falling apart, I'm going to just continue to have the experience of the world falling apart. And if I expand my view and begin to experience the wholeness of what's happening, suddenly I see the wholeness. Yep. I see it in the chat. It's hard to look at. That beauty is hard to look at and hard to look away from. Sometimes, I was just like literally binging on, I'm really into this Japanese flower arranging on TikTok. It's like my latest thing. And I was watching it too much yesterday and I was like, it's too much. I have to, it's like it's overwhelming my system, right? And I had to laugh about it. So I turned it off and I was like, had to kind of laugh at myself about it, about like, oh, I'm binging too hard. And I think it's Ikebani. And it's just so fucking gorgeous to watch it happen. And yes, it is hard. It is sometimes hard to take in the way that a compliment is hard to take in. Am I right? Sometimes when we don't want to believe something about ourselves that someone else sees, it's really hard to hear it. I want to share another story about speaking of attention, okay? Because I got to get my attention back on this particular point. And I want to share a story about the power of attention. And it's one of Aphrodite's stories. It's called Eros and Psyche. I hope that sound of that siren isn't too bad. I hope somebody's not. I'm going to take a sip. Hope everyone's okay. Okay, Eros and Psyche. It's probably the most famous story of Aphrodite. It's by far the most complex. Most of her other stories, they have, her in different forms, but this one is like she's front and center, okay? So, oh, good, you can't even hear it. Thank God. It was quite loud for me. Thank God. Okay, so the power of attention as it shows up in this story of Eros and Psyche. So, in this story, there's a mortal woman who begins to be known as more beautiful than Aphrodite. Now, keep in mind, there are cults and temples of Aphrodite, and all of the male adolescents are encouraged, or actually, they have to worship, they have to become devotees of Aphrodite when they hit adolescence, which is interesting. I wonder what the world would look like if we had that same rule that a boy at 13 had to begin to worship the beauty of the feminine. Just saying. Anyway, so Psyche is this beautiful mortal woman, and she's so beautiful. She's so breathtaking that all of Aphrodite's devotees begin following her. And on some level, you're like, all right, maybe that's not a big deal. But what Aphrodite knows is that if they start following a mortal and they put all of their devotion into a mortal, what's going to happen to the mortal? She changes. Mortals always change. And then she dies. And with that death, the devotion could also die. It's Aphrodite's job to keep the devotion to beauty and love and sexuality, fertility alive in the world. And so she sends her son Eros, who is you might know him as Cupid in the Roman version, but Eros is her son. His name is, by the way, he's the son of Aphrodite and Ares, who's again the god of war. So again, we have that violence and beauty connection. And so she sends Eros to go and shoot an arrow into Psyche's heart, make her fall in love with a hideous beast. And Eros, as soon as he comes upon this young Psyche, he absolutely his arrow actually shoots into his heart. He falls madly in love with her. And he realizes he's going to have to betray his mother. So long story short, I'm not going to get into all this. It's a really wonderful story, but I'm going to share with you basically Aphrodite went about trying to prevent this from happening, she found out that Eros is in love, and then she found out that Psyche is in love with him. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened, but Aphrodite sends Psyche through hell, literally, and back in an attempt to kill her so that she can retain that attention. And you can say that this is jealousy. And partly, I think the story is intended to talk about that jealousy. But a big part of it is that concept that if humans worship a human form, and which is different from bowing to the god within a person, if humans put all of their worship power into a human form the way that we do with celebrities or the royal family, right, then we don't have anything actually divine to put our to and we have no mystery to bow to. And that's ultimately what we need to bow to. It's not somebody's actual body, right? They could represent something, right? But in my eyes, I'm not sure why the fact that somebody got a job acting makes them something that's worthy of talking about constantly. It's never made any sense to me, but okay. So for the same reason, when I share this story with you as a way to help you, not so that you're going to go and like dive into like trying to get attention in all sorts of ways. Like what I want you to understand is that attention is the language of beauty. And so to get more comfortable receiving attention, to get more comfortable pushing attention away when we don't want it, this is what beauty offers us. Now, let me explain a little bit more of what I mean. So we've adorned ourselves for centuries, and it's been, yes, like all of the royalty has done this, right? Like some regular people have had adornment practices, regular people. And there's also this spiritual, mystical act of adornment that has happened. So we think about something like wedding dresses. Wedding dresses worn by a bride. Every single culture, like name one culture that doesn't have a beautiful wedding dress. Doesn't matter, the colors might be different, right? But it's like the bride is dressed up to the nines in every culture. Every culture. And there's a reason for that. It's because all attention should be on her. As the bride, she has the potential for the fertility that will continue a society. Okay, if we're going back to the ancient roots of this, when fertility worship was the most important thing. And for a bride to have the greatest valuable attention on her was important because it would mean that she might be blessed to be cherished throughout her life, to have children that continue the community. This is all very important. So that's that side of beauty that is receiving the kind of attention that can benefit us. Now, there's another side of it too. So if you look at shamans around the world, and shamans, by the way, male, female, doesn't matter, like in between all of it. Like it doesn't, I think we tend to think of shamans more in the male form right now, but it's like, no. Anyway, they are oftentimes ornately adorned. They have costumes that are, terrifying, that are like claws of animals and teeth and bones and stones and mirrors. This is intentionally done as a form of protection. This is as the shaman descends into the shadow realms, or into his or her own underworld, there's a need for protection. And so all of these adornments that are a little bit frightening go like this. They push away those who might have bad intention for that person. I want to put that into the context of something that you might understand a little bit more. So in the past, I don't know, decade or so, I've seen this trend where strippers, they tend to tattoo enormous amounts of their bodies, like almost entirely tattooed. And this would be the same effect, right? So a stripper receives the worst kind of behavior. And if she's tattooed from neck to toe, basically, it's a signal to her clients, to those patrons, that she is not a delicate flower to be fucked with. So you see, we can make a choice. We can make a choice with what we want to do with our beauty. We can use it to invite in, and we can also use it to push away. And that pushing away can happen until we're ready to allow the inviting in. I always have this story of when I used to work in politics ages ago, and I hated the work. I hated it so much. It was so draining to me. I hated being in these Capitol halls. I hated the egos. And I noticed that as I got a job that I got a promotion that pushed me more into the public. I was behind the scenes doing communications for many years. And I had to go into public meetings with these people who are just absolutely obsessed with their own egos. And I noticed that I would put on incredibly high heels, and I'd put on these like tight pencil skirts, and I'd like put on like a nice big padded bra, and I'd be like, and I was not alone in that look. The women that were in politics often ended up looking like this. Not all of them, but many of them use this. And this was a form of protection. Like I couldn't come in there with the same kind of, what's the word, like bravado that a lot of these men in power had. But I could intimidate the fuck out of them by looking like a badass bitch that they were not to fuck with. And it worked. Okay. So when I give you that permission, like it's totally fine to push someone away if you don't feel safe by using adornment and using beauty. So, speaking of adornment, we're going to move into the ritual portion. We're going to do a very short and simple ritual of adornment. And so, as I mentioned, you'll want to have something with you, something that is, calling you as a tool of adornment. It can be a hat, a scarf, a piece of makeup. You might want to change your clothing. Please keep screens off. And, whatever it is, you might even just have like a little perfume that you want to put on you. Anything that you feel called for. It's not about what makes me feel beautiful or what makes other people on the call feel beautiful. It's about what works for you. So I'll give you that fair warning. So go grab something if you don't have it. You might want to have a mirror handy as well, because I would like you to be able to see yourself. And if not, you can always use your video. So when you have your item of adornment, I want to ask you to just drop a note into the chat that tells me what's there. What do you have? I have two lipsticks that I wanted to play with and combine. Yeah, I've got two other people with lipsticks and magnolia oil. Nice. I also have this rose. This is this beautiful. If anybody is in Canada ever, please contact me for this person's rose oils. She is really connected to Mary Magdalene. Anyway, what what are you adorning yourself with? Lots of lipsticks, some oils. I jumped ahead. You don't have to put it on yet. So go ahead and begin just by taking a few breaths and just feeling what it's like to be in your body after all of this unpacking of a very, very deep and sometimes heavy topic. And begin to let your eyes just fall on the object or objects that you brought with you. And begin to just take them in, just drink in just through sight. Maybe you can see their color, their packaging, and that might allow you to think about, how this was made, whose hands went into making this. Feeling that there's a vibration in those who create our objects of beauty. So choose wisely. And then begin to pick up your object or any of your objects. I'm going to pick up my two here and just hold them. Before you're doing anything, you're just going to hold them. And you're just going to feel a little bit closer. Feel what it's like to have that color in the way that we played with the eyes in the blue in the very beginning of today. Can you draw in any color? I see I have this like pink and gold, and then my other lipstick is silver, and I'm going to open it, and it's this bright, bright, vibrant pink. And I'm noticing what's happening to my body as I just allow myself to drink in the color. And begin to play with this object, and you can play with it traditionally. I'm just going to do a little dab on my lips and go slow. Don't rush this. Just let yourself really feel the contact point. It's so soft. It's actually ticklish on my lips. As slow as you can go, and then 10% slower. And then noticing if your desire with this is to use this tool of beauty as a form of protection or as a way to draw in attention, wanted attention. Are you looking to seduce? Are you looking to command? Maybe you don't know, but maybe as you explore with this object, it can tell you, it can give you information. I have this insanely bright pink color. It's so vibrant, and you can see it across the room. Not showing up as much on Zoom, but it does draw in attention and sometimes even protects, because it might seem intimidating to have lips this bold. Like, who is that? What kind of audacity does this person have that could show up with that bright of a lip? You get to decide who gets to give you the attention that you want to receive. Now go fully into this. Go fully into this experience. I'm going to switch to the other color. It's got a different texture. It's so erotic. Just to like really slow down with this. This is the part that we've been missing. And when we do this, we build our power. When we slow down and don't just rush through everything all the time. Beauty asks us to pause and take in. Now I'm going to play a very, very short song, and I'll ask you to grab your mirror and begin to gaze at your reflection. This song is just over a minute. So begin to gaze and drink in what you see, and see if you can find some compliments, some positive regard for anything about the way that you look, remembering that in nature, nothing is perfect. It's not about perfect symmetry. It's not about things looking exactly as you imagine them to be. Trees grow crookedly. So begin to maybe you're drawn to touch your face or some other. Maybe you can make direct eye contact with yourself, eye gazing with being what you see. Mm. Thank you. Before you come back, to see if you can hear the whispers of Aphrodite coming down through this very simple, small act, reminding you that self celebration begins to shift the way you feel, the way that you perceive yourself. It begins to allow for more celebration of you. And when you can celebrate yourself with acts of beauty, you allow your light to be seen, you allow yourself to be seen. And the world really needs to see you right now. So I would invite you to feel Aphrodite, to feel her looking at you, looking through you. May you feel her soft kiss on your cheek. Maybe you've stepped toward her with a little bit more reverence, a little bit more joy, knowing that this is what she has wanted for you this whole time. That other stuff isn't who she is and what she's about. As we close this ritual space, may you remember what you've gained here. May it only build for you. May it serve you. May it serve the world and the collective. A good big breath in and release it. You just want to shake your head out a little bit, or like anything that brings you back into this other space. So I'd love to hear, some chat stuff has already started, but I'd love to hear just, you want to drop into the chat 1 or 2 words that describe your experience. Self-celebration. What was that like for you? It doesn't also, like, if it was hard, this stuff isn't what we're taught, right? Is it nourishing? Sometimes when we look at ourselves, it can be quite difficult depending on what's our state of mind and what's happening in our life and our body. You know, I just turned 48 last week, and you know, I've just been for several years now noticing like my face does not look the same as it used to, and it it really it's been challenging to do practices like that. And like I said, I use this mirror a lot in ritual practices as a way to continue to look at myself and honor myself. Is like the wrinkles aren't bad, right? And I purposely will go out now and I look for older women who still hold their beauty. Yeah, felt very special. It was challenging at first not to see my, I think that's faults, but afterwards I saw some of my beauty. Yeah. It is challenging to not, you know, you're just like so trained to see only the bad stuff. Wonderful. Thank you all. So I'm going to read one more. I always felt kind of ugly, but now I see I didn't feel safe. So I reject any kind of beauty in me. Yeah. Right. Like anyone else has been taught, if you show yourself off, if you know, put makeup on and like dress to the nines, like you're asking for the wrong kind of attention. Anyone else get that information as a girl? Right. Like that's, yep. Yep. Bingo. We have the power within us to use it for protection, right? This is my biggest passion right now, is like I am so passionate about teaching people how to really step into their full eros, not, you know, that this this word that means this like combination of romance, of love, of sexuality, of like aliveness meeting aliveness. And it's so exciting when I see a woman step into her lover self, her sensual self, her romantic self, her warrior dominatrix self, right? These things are huge and beautiful to watch. But I'll say this, it doesn't just happen. Like there's so much resistance. There's so many stories that are above us that are telling us all of these messages, like things that we've named today, right? Like if I shine, then I'm going to get targeted and I'm going to get assaulted. That's bottom line. That's the most brute message that we get. But what happens is that when we begin to turn the tap on a little bit to that Eros, it's amazing. Suddenly we're like, wait, all of that, the stories that I was told don't necessarily always apply all the time. And I can begin to discern when to turn it on, when to project a no, right? And when to kind of be invisible, because there's a time for each of those, right? So, what I'm into right now, my biggest passion is helping women turn that tap on and helping them understand how to use the tap. And so I have this program that I launched earlier this year called the Heartbreak Cure, which is the um it's the beginning of like what I wanted to offer. So I've got the Heartbreak Cure is really about helping women center themselves in their own love stories, right? And as like it's great that you care about love. It's great that you become a little bit like obsessed with somebody that you have a crush on, right? Like all of those things are valuable when we shift them into right way of being, right? Into alignment. Now, I'm adding something to this course. Like, so the Heartbreak Cure is love and romance, and it's specifically helping women learn how to reclaim that power, how to hold that power, how no longer to be ashamed of how much they love. The thing I'm adding to it is it's a four module course that's called Eros, an awakening of your sexual self. And this is specifically around the messages that we got around sexuality, around eroticism, and all of the messages that we got about that are quite damaging to our true expression of it. So this is centered around the retelling of four fairy tales that are predominant for anybody who's been raised in the West. That we have all heard of these, Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Red Riding Hood. So it's about understanding how the hidden messages came through in those and how do we reclaim what the original intention is. Because this is what I'll say is that anyone, if you go back, so try not to go on a whole tangent, okay? But what I want to say is this, okay? European folklore, European mythology is oftentimes mythology in general. It shows us how to live and how we should live in the world. A lot the European stories, a lot of them got cut off by at the knees because the Romans came in and just destroyed everything. Now, it never really fully went away. It got couched into fairy tales and folklore. Okay. And so you have to peel back the layers of all of these stories and begin to see that there's actually some really valuable information in here and some really shit information. It's all about who's telling the story, and they always have an agenda. So we have to begin with that. So what I want to do, this course, the second one, so the Heartbreak Cure does have its webpage, and the second course is like, I just wrote the copy last week for the sales page. So it's going to be up live. But what I wanted to say is that if you want to learn about this, then come and get on a free call with me. And we're going to talk about your experience with love and sexuality, eroticism, romance, relationships, and we're going to see if we can find some clear and actionable steps that can get you moving into a place where you actually feel powerful in these places. I'm going to give you a link here. You want to schedule, I will send this out in the email as well. And okay, so thank you. I'm going to come to the official close. I know I've gone over a little bit, and I'm going to turn off the recording for, just a few minutes of Q&A time if we have more questions. And before we close, what I want to ask you is to notice what has shifted as a result of being here today. What preconceived notions of beauty did you have coming in? And how have those changed, if at all? What questions are still lingering for you? How do you want to take it from here? Where do you want to go? Do you want to see the kind of world where beauty is something that is valued, and what the feminine can offer is something that is valued rather than denigrated, rather than made small, rather than made fun of? Are you willing to claim this? Starting with the simplest act, putting on lipstick, picking out your clothing, using that as a form of either protection or invitation. You have this power. Aphrodite has been waiting for us to find her, and I believe now is the time. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for hearing the call, Aphrodite, and all of the beauty that has never, ever, ever left us. Thank you.